Hello and welcome everybody. I am Giselle with Radical Freedom Parenting and Radical Freedom Hypnosis.com. And I'm here with Ezra Aguilar. We've been uh, I've been involved and excited about this, in the community, working with the community of trans parents and parents that are parents to trans children. And we just recently did an interview with my friend who has a trans child, and we talked a little bit about that. And that's how Ezra and I connected, because she was open to do an interview like this, being a trans parent herself. So I'll let her say a little bit about herself, whatever she wants to share, and then we'll just roll with it.
So I'm a non-binary person. I actually use they, them pronouns, not she, her.
Okay.
But I grew up feeling just kind of odd about my assigned gender at birth, and um it wasn't until I was an adult that I really had words to describe what was going on, because I didn't know that it was a thing and that I could not be one or the other, that I could just be me. And that was a really eye-opening thing for me, and really changed my life. And I didn't come out for a long time once I realized that, because I felt like people were just going to not accept that. Thankfully, when I did choose to come out, for the most part, people have been really accepting in my life, which is really great. And I have a 5-year-old. My 5-year-old, I tend to rotate pronouns when talking about my 5-year-old, just because my kid doesn't really seem to have any specific connection. Some days my daughter is like a unicorn princess and wants me to call her very feminine things, and then other days my kid is telling me that he's Lloyd from Lego Ninjago or whatever television show that
That's
kid
a
is
great show,
watching.
by the way.
Yeah, it's
Ninjago is awesome.
very, yes. Lego Ninjago is a large part of our lives.
I get that. It was for a while with ours. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but because my kid is young, I kind of just, I'm not interested in trying to push one way or the other.
Mm.
Evie can be whoever Evie is, and that's totally fine with me. And I mean, she might be gender fluid, or this might just be typical child play thing, and she just happens to really like male characters in general, because honestly my kid only tends to play male characters from shows. That doesn't matter what show. Even another big favorite in our house right now is the Superhero Girls show, and she's always the Flash from Superhero Girls.
Okay.
It just makes me laugh, but it doesn't really matter. It's just one of those like, okay, cool. I think being trans myself makes me more apt to just let her explore and want to support that. And so if my kid is Lloyd from Lego Ninjago, then he gets called Lloyd all day until
Right.
he tells me otherwise. But yeah, that's
So this is fascinating and completely like mind expanding, and I'll tell you why. And thank you for sharing all this. My journey in life has been about, you know, freedom and when you think you're free, and then there's another place you catch yourself being stuck in and not free in it. So I feel like I've blown open with that, which hence radical freedom hypnosis and radical freedom parenting and radical unschooling, which is all about freedom and respect and trust. What you're saying right now is, I mean, it is truly a new paradigm we're stepping into. And the freedom that, because of your experience of not being limited by uh, a sex or a gender or whatever that was placed upon you that you grew up in, that the society kind of upholds as the only possibility, and you allowing this for your child, not because you think they should be trans or anything like that, just because the freedom and the support to be who they are. And that could change from day to day. It could change from day to day for everybody. Even if you're not, going through all the shifts in that, as trans people do, but that how and maybe that's why, if I dare to say, maybe that's why the population of the communities of trans people are so threatening to society, because they express a certain level of freedom, like not just freedom from, I'm going to do what I want with my life, but this is like, I'm not going to be limited by, what genitals I have, or what the doctor said when I was born. You know what I mean? And it's challenging. It's challenging to be on the edge, the creators, the inhabitants of a new paradigm. It really is. And so that brings me to my question that I wanted to ask you. When you decided to come out, was there something in your life, a person or a community or YouTube videos or whatever, that you felt inspired you and supported you and gave you the courage or the motivation to step out and just own it? Or was that something you felt you had to do all on your own?
Well, I started coming out first to like friends in online spaces, which felt a little bit safer. And I was dating someone for a little bit, and she made me feel safe enough that I was like, like I'd talk to her and I would say, like, I feel like I want to come out and tell people, but I'm afraid. And she reminded me over and over again, like we must have had that conversation 15 times. But she kept reminding me that people who aren't willing to support me being my authentic self aren't really people that I want in my life in the first place. And that was, I mean, it like I said, it took her reminding me a lot. But once it finally like clicked into place for me, I felt, you know what, like that's right. Like I don't need people in my life who I have to pretend to be someone else for.
Yeah.
And I was pretty lucky with it. Like most of my friends and family have been incredibly supportive. Even, I know that it was a little bit rough for my parents, especially with name and pronoun changes, but they've worked really hard to sort of change their own mindset about like about who I am and just about how the world works in general, which has been really cool to watch them open the way that they think about things. So yeah.
Interesting. So the pronoun thing is a super hot topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, and are you?
Yeah, I've read that debacle.
Right. There's a documentary on Netflix which kind of covers the whole debacle pretty thoroughly. Of course, it's mainly from his perspective. Not that this matters, but my take on the whole thing is like, and this might get me in trouble too, but that it's one coin and there's two sides to it. And I think we'll never, I don't know. I don't think that there'll ever be one agreement on that and one way that it's right and one way that it's wrong. I don't. I mean, I can see so much in both sides, right? But and I'll tell you, yeah, I'll tell you. See, this is I already see the reaction. And I'll tell you, and again, I'm not in that space, but I'm in the other space, right? Which is there is no pronoun issue or sub or yeah. And I had the experience, which does not compare at all. Well, it kind of does compare. My name at birth is Giselle, but since I was a baby, I was given Gigi as a nickname. I don't even know how that happened. So my whole life, I was Gigi. And then at some point in my life, probably I'm almost 50 now. I'll be 50 next month, April. And at some point, maybe I was 40 or no, I was way earlier. It's probably my 30s. I just didn't resonate with Gigi anymore.
Yeah.
I resonate, and so Giselle, and so many people made really to call Giselle, right? And then when they would talk about me in the past, it would be Gigi, and then oh no, it's Giselle, right? Because you were that in the past, right? So, and my family to this day just it doesn't call me Gigi. And there was a phase, and I'm not saying that I'm not making any judgments here. I'm just saying my experience. So there was a phase when it really bothered me that they couldn't just fucking call me Giselle, right? It's my fucking name,
Mm.
you know? And at some point I just got over it. It didn't matter. I knew who I was. I know I'm Giselle. And they don't call me Gigi. They don't call me Giselle. They still call me Gigi. Some of them make the effort, some of them don't. But I don't take it personal anymore. And um, I wonder if that could be a thing or if it's really something that has to be acknowledged. You know what I mean?
So for me, when people use the wrong pronouns or the wrong name for me, it's like I don't know. The best like comparison that I make is I have a lot of like sensory issues because I'm neurodivergent, and one of the things that like I cannot handle the way that microfiber towels feel, like touching it, like it genuinely makes me feel sick to my stomach. Like it's a physical reaction, and that's what that feels like for me.
Right.
Like someone just suddenly took a microfiber towel and rubbed it all over my face, and it's just like ugh, like it just makes me feel awful. Like I understand, especially because I don't conform to a binary gender at all. I understand that people look at me and they people who don't have any sort of like connection to my community or anything like that assume that I'm a woman and use she her pronouns for me, and I get where people are coming from with that. I'm not, I'm not gonna yell at a stranger in a grocery store
Right.
for calling me ma'am or something like that. But for people who are in my life on a regular basis, um, I mean, like, I should clarify that I'm not really a particularly shouty, angry person in general. I mostly just correct people and move on. Like,
Yeah.
somebody says my birth name, I'm just like, nope, it's Ezra. Like, and just remind
Oh,
them.
so you
And
changed your name as well.
yes,
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool. That's cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful
And
name.
I don't have a I know a lot of trans people, they refer to that as their dead name,
Mm,
and that's totally fine. They feel like that person is gone. For me, I don't call that my dead name because I don't really have like it's not like a really like negative connotation. It just didn't fit, like it just wasn't
Mhm.
me.
Right.
Um,
I get
in
that.
fact, when I do my legal name change, which will hopefully be this summer, that legal name changes are ridiculously expensive. Um, but
Really?
yeah, like $500. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So I when I legally change my name, my birth name will be my middle name.
Oh, nice.
Because my birth name was really important to my mom. And honestly, like it's not like I said, it's not something that I have like a negative thing. I just don't want people to call me that. That's really my
Yeah.
thing with that. And so like, I mean, like I understand for other trans people for whom being dead named and misgendered it makes them feel horrible about themselves, and they
Mhm.
have this connection with who they are, and with the disconnect with people not seeing them as who they are is just too much. um
Yeah, I get that. I see that.
yeah.
So I just want to, I guess I want to back up a little bit, and after
Sure.
hearing what you're saying, restate what I said. I didn't I didn't mean like flat out disrespecting. Like if somebody says I'm a they or them, I'm not a she or a he, that you like say, look, like the whole Jordan Peterson thing, like, no, I'm not even going to respect that. Pay attention, is blah, blah, blah. I meant more like, and this happens as well. And I know, and when your explanation was so beautiful, it's so peaceful and connected and aware. I think a lot of, and again, I might get bit for saying this, but a lot of the younger people, because they're coming into their identity and it's already so drastically different and challenging in the world that we're in and all that, that
Mhm.
it's like if somebody doesn't know, like you said, the grocery store person says "Hey, she left her wallet or whatever, that they become very angry or kind of, and in that sort of, or even when they're just coming out and everything, where the people that know them are used to it, I mean, that happened with my friend. Like it would slip, she would say she, even though now it's a he, which is, like saying they or them, whatever, instead. And coming to a point where both sides kind of just need to relax about it in certain heated situations and go, look, we're trying here and we're all just navigating this new territory together, so let's
Mhm.
be um, relaxed with each other and allowing. And there's nothing wrong with saying they them when somebody says something else by mistake, or
Yeah.
right. And there's nothing wrong with the person correcting them when they say something else. You know what I'm saying? Like just coming into that more accepting and relaxed, like we're just, this is
Yeah.
very new ground. So we're trying.
Yeah. And
Those are our,
that's very I think that the majority of people within my community, as long as you're not being like an asshole about it,
right,
um
right up.
I mean,
Yeah.
like it's just if someone's like, oh yeah, she blah blah blah, oh I mean them, like that's totally fine. Like somebody, my family does that a lot. They will say the wrong pronoun and then just gently correct themselves and move on, and that's totally fine.
Mhm,
um
mhm.
Honestly, it's almost worse when people worse than misgendering when people go launch into this like huge apology, like, oh my god, I'm so sorry,
Right.
and it's fine. I know a lot of times, especially with kids who are younger and more protective of their identities,
Right.
that it's very that for them they're very they get a little bit more angry. And that's not to say there aren't adults who also get really angry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like with kids a lot of that just has to do with the Sorry, my mouth just failed on saying that word there. I feel like with kids that's a lot of it has to do with where they are developmentally as to how, not to say that their anger isn't a valid reaction, because it totally is. Like it's being protective of that is absolutely normal and expected and totally fine. I'm not saying that my reaction is like better or anything like that. Just that it's maybe a little bit more logical, I guess. Maybe no, that's not really what I want to say, but like it's based more on a bigger understanding of the
Yeah, I
world,
was gonna
I
say
guess.
that, like an awareness of the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if I had known, because I was 25 when I first heard of anybody being non-binary. I read it in this article by this person, S.E. Smith. And that person is also a non-binary person. And I was like, what? I don't like, because I spent my whole life, I have neurodivergencies and mental illness, and I just spent my whole life thinking that my feeling just when people would call me a girl or a woman was related to mental illness. I was just like, okay, I'm just broken, it's fine. And so when I found that, I had this immediate like, oh my gosh, like I don't, that could be me, that sounds like me. Because the author was talking about their own way of finding who they are, and I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds like me. And but like, and I was protective at first, but it's also why I didn't come out, because I knew that my like external reaction would be a lot. And I was already like, by the time that I even heard of this identity, like I was already past most of brain development stages. I wasn't a teenager going through these intense developmental shifts, and especially because teenagers are, they also have that developmental need to like push for independence and whatever. I can imagine that is probably really, really overwhelming for them to have this like this knowledge of who they are that may or may not match what other people see them as, and then to feel like that's not being respected, even if their family and their friends are just making a mistake out of habit. Because if you have years and years of calling someone one thing, it's rough to try to switch to something else. I just recently started using my chosen name at work, and watching my coworkers, a few of them, they're all trying really, really hard, and I appreciate that so much. And a few of them like get upset with themselves, and I'm like, you don't need to get upset. Like, you've spent 2 years calling me a different name. Like, I get it. Like, you have a habit of saying this thing when you're talking to me. It's not a big deal. Like, don't worry about it. Just correct yourself and move on. That's it. I feel like the people who are being respectful have a tendency to feel like they need to get it immediately, and it's not that, like, obviously I cannot speak for my entire community, but for most of us, we don't expect you to like be able to immediately like shift your whole perception of something and do that with no problems whatsoever. Especially when using pronouns other than he, her, or sorry, he, him, or she, her, just because that's, I know that most people went through school being told that you can't use they, them in the singular and all that kind of stuff, even though.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I think might be really difficult, or people straight out refuse it, is that you're, changing the whole English grammar structure with that, and that's epic. And I think that's fantastic, but I could see how that could be such a hard thing to deal with. But it's happening, for sure. Like
Mhm,
I worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Are you familiar with that? The mentoring,
mhm,
yeah, wonderful organization. And just in the last couple of years, they've completely redone their forms for the child enrollment
mhm.
and for the volunteer enrollment, actually. Yeah, to ask these questions. How do you want to be referred to? What gender or no gender? All kinds of these questions that I witnessed. The older people, we have some older people on there, like 60, 70, some of them very religious. Like they are doing it because of the organization they work for. They do have an open mind, but you can feel that it's difficult. And at some point they just want to go, fuck this, So yeah, but it is happening. But I think that's a big thing. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, it does take completely shifting the grammar of the language in these cases.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, it's funny because most people use they, them in a singular way casually all the time. If you don't know the gender of the person you're talking about, most of the time you say they. Um,
That's
if
true. I hadn't thought
um
of that. That's true as well. Yeah.
yeah, and like most people do that without even thinking, which is totally fine. Um,
Yeah.
but then when it comes to like a specific person, people are like, no, I can't do that, which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and
Huh.
I understand that that's really, it's like I got that drilled into my head in high school. Like I
Right.
remember
Right.
trying to write papers and getting points taken off for using they instead of he or she.
That's hilarious.
um
Did you do it on purpose or just like me? Like just,
no, like
oh,
it wasn't.
I thought
I
that would be good. You're starting now.
Yeah. Well, now at this point, both the APA and the MLA, the different style guides, have changed to allow that. So
Mm,
teachers who don't allow that are technically going against the style guides. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, they've that it's one of those like linguistically, singular they is older than singular you, which is just what it's why, like, when we say
Mhm.
you are instead of you is, even if you're referring to one person. um
Wow, fascinating. Another thing I never thought.
yeah, it's one of those, the
I do
only
have to
reason
say,
that I
how
know
is you
this.
when I talk to my friends. I text, how is you? But I'm always thinking I'm just fucking up the grammar. But yeah, good point.
Yeah, the honestly, the only reason that I know this is because I found it like fascinating.
Hmm.
Someone specifically mentioned to me the style guide thing changing, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's really interesting. And then I just went down a rabbit hole because ADHD brain means I do that kind of stuff sometimes. And yeah, so I read all this different stuff about how pronouns have worked in the English language for forever, and it's just really I don't know, I found it really interesting. But
Yeah, it is.
it's one of those things that I think that a lot of people, like, it feels new. It's not new, but it feels new because we're using it in a different context.
Yeah,
That's just the, like,
yeah,
it feels like this brand new thing. It's not a new thing. We're just looking at the same thing from a different angle.
yeah, absolutely. So I had a question that came up, and if you feel comfortable with answering this, and if not, that's fine too. But because you mentioned you had some mental health stuff that you thought that this was because, so once you've stepped into this and just, you know come to peace in your own mind and body with this, has that shifted a lot of the mental health stuff that you were experiencing before?
No, I have panic disorder, um, and generalized anxiety disorder, I guess. technically, but the panic is the part that bothers me the most part.
Right.
And I didn't really start to I didn't have any treatment other than talk therapy until I was like 24, 25. Like, it was before I came out and started talking to other people about how I felt internally. But when I started taking medications for it and I still felt that way, that was one of those like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't
A thing.
maybe this isn't just I have a broken brain. This is just who I am.
And did medication help with the other stuff?
The panic stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make it go away completely, but it makes it so that I can function in the world and go about. Things have been a little bit harder since the whole COVID situation.
Sure.
Because one of the biggest things that's been a huge panic trigger for me is crowds, and it has been since forever. But now what my brain perceives as a crowd is much smaller than what it was before. So grocery shopping is difficult, but hopefully that will slide away as well. Hopefully things die down with all of the
Yeah. So, yeah. And your child and you have sounds like a very good, free, loving relationship.
yeah, we try.
Are you a single parent?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
married.
Okay, right.
And we, bless you,
Thank you.
both my husband and I, we try very much to I don't know, like, our big thing with our child is just acceptance, that uh whoever she is, however she's feeling, that's what we want to accept. It's not to say that there aren't like boundaries in our household, because there are, but we try very hard to make boundaries only about things that are important, for like health and safety. One of the biggest things is that my daughter hates taking baths. Like, it is like, I never realized that kids genuinely hated baths like that. But she, like, it is a huge deal. And she hates doing it. She'll try to like go in and just get in the water and then get out and tell me that no, I washed. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, you were in there for 4 minutes. No, you didn't.
Right.
But that's a health and safety thing. Like,
Yeah,
bathing is required. Sorry.
absolutely.
But stuff like whether or not there are some toys on the floor is a completely like,
Okay.
whatever. As long as nobody's going to trip over them, it doesn't matter. It's not that
Yeah.
big of a deal.
Yeah. And that's a really big misconception that I think a lot of people may have, that if you're on this path of radical freedom and radical unschooling, or maybe even just take the radical out of it, that sounds too radical, and just the freedom and unschooling part, that it has to be all or nothing. And, as a coach for for unschooling and freedom parenting, I tell people that you have to be, you're doing this for yourself and for your child, right? But there is no right way to do it. Like, if you do that, that means you're not unschooling, or you're not a freedom parenting. And just to tell you, there's the whole spectrum of it, and whatever feels good to you is you need to trust that. And if you feel like, for example, if you felt like you didn't, it's like this, like the bathing thing, right? That's a boundary for you, that's important, and you're good with it. you know, you work it together with the dynamics of your family. Perfect. Now another person might have that same boundary, but or fixation, or I don't mean to say it's a fixation, but like, but that they don't feel comfortable with. Like I'm like they think like it should be okay not to bathe, and then there's support for that to say, okay, so where are you not comfortable? Let's have a look at it, because it obviously has to do with the parent, right? Not with
Right.
the situation. So there's a difference in setting your boundaries and being confident with that and trusting them as you do, and that's wonderful, and you know, and stepping into this realm of equal rights for your kids and respect and finding your way together in this way. And there's a difference with those that are doing what they're supposed to do because of fears, while they don't want to, or they want to let go of that a little bit more than that. And this is definitely important, and this is staying in our household. And that's, so there's a misconception that they might not reach out for support, or because they're like, well, I still have this kind of thing going on, so I'm going to be judged and ridiculed, or like, you're not an unschooler, how dare you post on this group or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that's, I just want to get that out there, because there's all kind of spectrum and support for all of that wherever you're at. And even if you're
Yeah.
not an unschooler or something, like you just have issues or problems that you like to talk to somebody who has that sort of mentality and experience about it, that's also available. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah.
We've had that issue. I've had that issue with the unschooling thing. Is I've posted in different places, and I've said something about how my daughter likes to do workbooks because kid likes to do workbooks. Like, I'm not the one who's like, no, you have to sit down and do the workbook. Frankly, my child also has ADHD. Like, if I was like, we're going to sit and do workbooks for 8 hours a day, that would just result in tears for everybody. There's no way that that's going to be a thing. But sometimes kid wants to do workbooks, and I posted something about it once, gosh, like a year ago. And I mean, at that point, kid was in preschool. So it wasn't even like I wasn't even thinking about formal type education of anything. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And I asked in a group, because we'd been leaning towards this particular plan for a little while. And I asked in a group, and everybody was like, you're not unschooling if you use workbooks. And I was like, okay, but I'm not trying to like make my kids' education workbooks. I'm just, my kid asked for this. So I wanted to find some that fit a little bit with our like general philosophy. Like, I didn't want to get things that like had to be done every day or whatever. And I was just like, I just want something that my kid wants to do. Like, the whole point of this kind of schooling for me is that it's child led. And if what my child wants to do is do a workbook, then why should I say no? Like, that's,
yeah, I think with every subject, especially the, you know, the unschooling and the trends, I think anything extreme just chops its head off, and there's no possibilities anymore for growth, for communication, for other, you know, possibilities that are available to us, you know. So I really also cringe with that, but I understand that there are a lot of people out there in the world like that, and we just we deal with it how we deal with it, and hopefully, you know, don't have to come across that too often, because it is kind of insulting almost, and it's like, you know, who cares? You chill the fuck out, you know. But yeah, what was I gonna say about stuff? Oh yeah, another thing that's like if it was a coloring book, oh great, you know, free. It's like your child likes to color books, and then you know, that's unschooling. But a board book isn't. I mean, actually, I use the same, yeah, right, that same example with when our son was on, well, he still is unschooling, and he had his one of his best friends at the time was a girl. She was 2 years older, and then this is when like they were 5 or 6, and she was 2 years older. I mean, she would read a book a week as a, you know, 7-year-old, And so we'd go in the car somewhere, and Zamil would be in his iPad, and she'd be reading her book. And then she'd just glance at this with such judgment, like, you're on that all day. How many books do you read? And he's like, I don't. And he's like, you're reading all day, you know, how much iPad do you watch? So it's like, it's right. It's such a judgment that is conditioned in us. Like, who says that reading a
Mhm.
book all day is better and, than watching a screen? Like, whatever, they're doing what they want. They're learning in their own ways from different sources, so all that
Mm.
stuff is breaking down, but it's really much more prevalent, that we just allow, and there's no
Yeah.
judgment, in the sort of freedom parenting and unschooling paradigm. I mean, yeah, some of the stuff that we do and how it works is like, if the traditional parents, or our parents even, or our parents, luckily my grandparents are all
Mhm.
dead, or they'd be like, you're ruining your kid. No.
Mm. Yeah, there is, and it's interesting the level of like judgment that comes from people, and even like people my own age who
Sure.
don't choose to do that kind of stuff with parenting. That like, I have a coworker who anytime that I talk about it is like, your kid's gonna end up in jail, and I'm like, I don't think so, but sure. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever you say, you can think what you want. I
Yeah.
think that I'm doing what's best. I studied child development in college, and I'm like, yeah, I'm coming at this from a pretty informed perspective, but sure, you want to, I
Yeah.
guess we'll see in 20 years. I don't know.
It's, and he'll share a cell with your kid.
Right. like, 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 I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure that jails are pretty full, and that the style of parenting that I do is relatively new and uncommon. Um, but sure.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, everybody approaches life from their own perspectives, and
Yeah.
it's fine. I just think that we need to not be so just judgmental about the way that other people live their lives, especially when it's things that are not going to affect someone else.
Mm.
Um, and that's, I mean, that's honestly my biggest thing with being with my community as a transgender person, that like the way that we live our lives doesn't affect other people. Like, why should it matter to somebody else if someone wants to change their names and
Hmm.
presentation and pronouns? Like, why does it matter? It doesn't hurt you.
No, but I think it challenges everything that their world is built upon, that, and their own limitations and restrictions and religion and, their own judgment. It threatens that. It really does. Because if they can get away with doing this and not be punished or hurt or sent to hell, then I've done all this behaving and being good, just for
Mm,
nothing, and maybe it's not that black and white, but I do think there's a certain challenge and
yeah.
threat to their existence that this can be, because like everything I believed and built my whole life and upon is based on, this is the way it is and there is no other way. So that just kind of starts to chip away at that reality, and that could be,
Yeah, I can
scary.
imagine that would be pretty scary for
Yeah.
somebody if that's what they think, that this is the way that the world is, and finding out that that's not really the way that the world is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
or not the
pretty.
only way the world is. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, yeah, so cool. You've shed so much light on me. Thank you. And hopefully for others. I really appreciate you sharing yourself and talking to me. And I don't know if you want to share any a way that people can get, in touch with you if they want support, or that's if you don't, you know, or anything like that. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. I have it, I'm offering it too on my stuff, but you know, just if they want to directly communicate or connect with you.
I don't really have anything other than just like my personal profiles and stuff, and I don't really want to have that
Okay, no worries.
public at this particular time, but
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to ask, but yeah. Okay, so, and this will be posted, this recording will be posted on my Radical Freedom parenting page on Facebook. I will also get it on the Unschooling and the Trans Unschooling group. And if anybody has any questions or comments, you can comment on any one of those groups where the video is posted. You can also directly private message me on Facebook. My name is Giselle Suarez, and we can carry on the conversation further and get into new conversations as well. And for some support, I do offer coaching and hypnosis and all that good stuff. So I'm going to say goodbye. And Ezra, if you stay on just for a minute after so I can share something with you.
Sure.
Okay. So thanks for watching, and hope to hear from you all soon, and be well, and peace out. Let me end the recording. Okay.